Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fat Doctor podcast. Daddy, this one's for you. Yes, I have a smug smile on my face. I'm so excited about recording this episode. Um, it's entitled I'm the Child of a Narcissist. And folks, I'm the child of a narcissist. I need you to know that. I need you to know that. And you might be thinking, so what? What's that got to do with anything? Actually, being the child of the narcissist puts me in, I wouldn't say a unique position, but gives me a set of skills that really qualifies me to help you navigate the healthcare system in a fat body for two reasons. Number one, a lot of doctors are narcissists. So you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that sounds like my doctor. Yeah, I know. Also, a lot of people in power are narcissists. In fact, I would argue most people in power are narcissistic to some degree. And we use that word, we bounce that word around a lot, especially now in the in the time of social media and influencers talking about it. But when I'm going to tell you what I mean by narcissist, I'm going to explain what I mean by narcissist. I'm not going to use the word narcissistic personality disorder because I have a little bit of an issue with the term personality disorder. It's a bit of a problematic term as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not going to use that term either. But I'm going to tell you what I mean by narcissist. I'm going to define it so that you know what I'm talking about. And then when I sort of talk you through it, you're going to be like, oh, gosh, that sounds familiar, Asha. And then I'm going to tell you what I learned from being a child of a narcissist. All right. Now, here's some things you need to know. My dad has been estranged from me for the past decade. I have not cut him out of my life. He cut me out of his life very dramatically, very suddenly, just like that. My mum died in 2013. She died of pancreatic cancer. For those of you who don't know, it was very sad. She was someone who battled her weight her whole entire life and then was very excited because she started losing weight. And she told me all the salsa classes were finally paying off. And I really, at that point in time, should have been like, huh? But I didn't know what I know now. And so I was like, good for you, Mum. And then 6 months later, she was dead. That's sorry if you've recently experienced trauma. That's gallows humor, isn't it? That's just, I've had to come to terms with it. It was not pleasant. But my mum died in 2013, and she was the reason that my dad was, I'm not going to say tolerated, but like that he was able to go through life without completely fucking everything up, right? Like my mum offered him like she made up for all of his failings, and there are a number of failings. So she was great, and she loved me. My mum was a problematic person, and I could do a whole series of podcast episodes about some of the shit my mum said to me. My sister recently read a letter, an apology letter that my mum wrote to her many years ago, and we were pissing ourselves laughing because even when my mum was apologizing, she was an asshole. She was something else. I also think she was probably autistic, so that didn't, that changes things. But anyway, suffice to say, my mother loved me. She caused numerous issues. I spent years in therapy dealing with these issues. My self-esteem and my body issues, 95% thanks to my mother. Maybe not, actually. There's more to it than that. But like in the grand scheme of things, she was all right. She was cool. She loved me very much. And really, when it comes down to it, as a parent, I say this, sometimes that's all that you could do is just love your kid and hope for the best. My dad is not a villain. I don't do heroes and villains, okay? Like there's not Disney. He's not a villain. He's just my dad and a problematic father. One of his last acts before he completely cut me out of his life was to send a spreadsheet that itemized every single penny he had ever spent on me in my life. He put a monetary value, like room, board, food, school, like it was an Excel spreadsheet, and there was actual like he'd done calculations, like he'd used Excel. He loves Excel, so he had calculated this is how much he had invested in me, and he sent the spreadsheet to my husband to say like, here's the bill. Like I don't think he wanted money. I think he wanted thanks, but he was like, voila, itemized. Like when you go to a restaurant and like you wave at the waiter and say, here's, he didn't ask, my husband didn't ask for the check. He didn't say, hey, send it to, my dad just volunteered it. But yeah, there was a spreadsheet with a like, this is how much my child is worth. My worth distilled into numbers. I just want to give you an idea of what life was like growing up. My dad has an extremely heightened sense of self-importance. He really thinks he's a big shot. He thinks he is the shit, and he's not. He thinks he's a genius. Not. He thinks he's an inventor. He isn't. He thinks he's like, he has this fantasy in his head of being this extremely successful man. And there is some element of truth to it in that, like he accumulated wealth over the course of his lifetime. He made some relatively shrewd business decisions. So there was also a lot of luck involved, a lot of fortune, the equivalent of a PPI claim that, like, just for those of you who know what that is, like, he managed to get some money because he was missold life insurance or something. And so, a number of factors came together. He also was very lucky. His parents, my grandmother was a dressmaker. She made curtains at a little tiny desk in her conservatory. And my grandfather worked in a shop. And they worked really fucking hard. They were good people, and they made a better life for him. And they immigrated to this country. And my dad went to university because at the time, university was free. And so, like, I'm not saying he didn't work. He did work, but he didn't do anything special. Like, he didn't do anything more special than anyone else. He didn't come up with any ingenious ideas. He's not some kind of entrepreneur or any of that shit. But in his mind, he's a god amongst men. And he will tell you about it. My God, will he tell you about it? If you give him the opportunity to tell you how great he was, he will spend hours telling you about it. Sometimes you don't have to give him the opportunity. You just be sitting near him. As long as you're adjacent, as long as you're within speaking distance, he'll just tell you how great he was. You don't have to ask. He has an excessive need for admiration. So that sort of comes hand in hand with him telling you how great he is. You must respond with, "Oh, you're so great." If you don't do that, that's a problem, and you will be punished. Um, he will tell you none of these things are true, of course. He will tell you he's the most humble man on the planet. And that in of itself should give it away. I am humble. Humble people don't say that. I don't know if you've noticed. If somebody's telling you how, it's like when Donald Trump tells you he's not a racist. Anybody who says I'm not a racist, you're like, well, I think you probably are a racist, because not racists, as anti-racists, don't need to tell you that they're not racist. They can just be like, that's just standard. None of us should be racist. And it's the same with being humble. Like, he tells you how humble he is, and that in itself, telling you that he is one of the most humble people on the planet, is in of itself a brag, right? So it should give you a clue. He is fucking entitled. He picks fights with people, randoms on the street sometimes. And you just like, what the hell? I remember being in a Costco once, and my husband was with me. I sort of walked off, but my husband was there, and I don't know what happened. Some guy took a trolley, or it was something random and small. This guy was huge. He was big, like his muscles had muscles, right? And also, my dad was wrong, and this guy was right. This guy was the one, like he wasn't upsetting my dad was upsetting him. My dad was just, oh my God, like he was just such a jerk. Who's that guy on TikTok and Instagram who like just shows videos of people being jerks and is like, who's this guy? Let's like name and shame him. Like, my dad is worthy of one of those videos, because he's the guy that just stops you in the street and says shitty things for no reason, because you've upset him, because you got in his way, because you cut him off, because you offended him in some way. He's so entitled, and he'll tell you that's not true, but that you just have to follow him around. Like, see him get into fights and be like, "Ooh," and he'll tell you about getting into fights, like, "Oh, this person did this and this person did that," and you got to wonder, is it you or is it them? He absolutely expects everyone to agree with him at all times. Like, you are never allowed to disagree with him. If you disagree with him, he will eviscerate you with his words. He's not a particularly violent man. He was violent, and there were a few occasions in my life when I genuinely thought he was going to kill me. Like, not he was hurting me and I was physically in pain. It was beyond that. It was like, he's not going to stop. He's going to just keep going. Times when he'd lock me in a room and just wail on me, and I'd just be like, oh, okay. I was very young. And the worst thing about it was he would just stop, calm as you like, He always would make sure that it happened parts of my body that were not visible. You know, he never punched me in the face. He was smart like that. And then he'd unlock the door and he'd walk out like nothing ever happened. That was the hardest part, actually. And I just have to get up and pretend nothing happened. And nobody acknowledged it. We just all, because we were so afraid of him, we just had to pretend it didn't happen. But he didn't do that very often, to be fair to him. Like, we're talking a handful of times. He didn't like to get his hands dirty. More often than not, he likes other people to do his dirty work for him. But if you disagree with him, if you perform in a way that he doesn't like, if you stand up to him, just the thought, actually, genuinely, sometimes when I talk about him, I feel it. I feel it here in my gut. Like, I feel sick just thinking about it. If I ever got a text, I mean, he doesn't text me anymore because he's cut me off. But if I ever got a text to him, I would have that like sinking feeling, like that, oh shit, I've been caught kind of feeling, because that's how he makes me feel, and how he always has. He exploits people to get what he wants. And he is really good at using your words against you. I don't know if a few episodes ago, I was talking about how people use their words against, use my words against me. Like, I learned that happened with him. You just say one thing wrong and he will like, gotcha. He'll like pull it. He'll be like, that's the one. I found your weakness. He's so good at looking for the weakness. He just pokes and pokes until he finds it. Oh, he's an expert, master manipulator. Also, my dad doesn't have empathy, as in, like, how a lot of people say autistic people don't have empathy. That's not true. Autistic people have more empathy than most people, in my opinion. And my mother, as I said, I think she might have been a little bit autistic, and she didn't show empathy the way that a lot of people show empathy, or that we perhaps expect people to show empathy. And so a lot of people would think, oh, she doesn't have empathy. That's not true. She felt things deeply. When my mum was dying, I used to have to travel to London from where I lived to see her. And I had a cesarean with my daughter, and my stitches split open one day. So I'm in London. I'm visiting my mum, who's in hospital, who's sick, who's dying, and my C-section scar, just pops open. It was really gross and really painful. And I just remember, like, my dad was there. And he was just, my sister was like, take the babe, take the pram, like, take the babe, do something. And he was just like, like, oh, yeah, just looking at his nails, like, do you want me to get the car? Like, this was nothing, no concern. Like, he couldn't even fake concern, which I think in of itself is a problem. Um, I wrote, I wrote some stuff. This is the revenge portion. Um, he remarried after the death of my mother, and his new wife is kind of the new mouthpiece. Like I said, he doesn't like to get his hands dirty, so he um he gets someone else to do it for him. And my mother would never have done that, but she does. So here we go. He is not a villain or a monster. He's just a weak, insecure, petty little man who needs to be worshipped, heard, seen, and valued at all times by any means necessary. He has a history of meeting independent women and subduing them slash conquering them. They're not trophy wives. Didn't want a trophy because he wants all eyes on him. But he got a kick out of subduing and conquering an independent woman like my mother, who was pretty awesome. He can be charming when he wants to be. He rations his time and his affection, so you're always chasing after him. And that's all I did when I was a kid, like, desperate for daddy's attention. Here's something. He's an absolute chameleon. Like, he will have a total personality transplant whenever it suits him. I haven't seen him for many years, but sometimes people tell me, oh, I saw your dad and he's doing this and he's doing that. I'm just like, what? He's, what? That's not him. Total personality transplant whenever it suits his agenda. Whenever he doesn't get his way, he's mean and he's cruel. And when he screams and when he's violent and when he picks arguments with people, he is fucking terrifying. He is, in my mind, a monster. He is a scary monster when he wants to be. But his outbursts aren't continuous, they're not constant, because that wouldn't suit his need to be adored. He uses them to keep you in line. More often than not, he uses someone else as his mouthpiece, someone who is easily manipulated and has no personality of their own. His power comes from manipulating people into losing their temper and then twisting it around and turning them into the bad guy, aka Darvo, in case you don't know what that is. And for the longest time, like as I said, he gave my husband an itemized bill and then told me that he had better things to do with his life than to spend time with me, that I wasn't, he wanted to, he chose happiness over everything else. And, he's sick and tired of, just because he rubs people up the wrong way doesn't mean he's supposed to change his whole life round. And if I have needs, that's tough shit on me. Like he just wants to be happy. He's going to spend the rest of his life being happy because he's worked so hard. And blah, 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 blah. So he just cut me out of his life, and I haven't heard from him since. And I haven't ever had any support. And he has three grandchildren. He never once sent them a birthday card or a Christmas card or a text message or anything. Like just cut us out. Um, So I'm telling you this, all of this, because I learned a lot of very valuable lessons as a child of a narcissist. Some of you are going to be listening and going, oh shit, that's my life too. Samesies. Probably more of you than one would expect out in the big wide world. I think us children of narcissists tend to attract one another. Like we tend to huddle together. Um, so many of you will be listening to this going, oh shit, that's my life too. Um, And I probably should have put content warning. Better do that in the show notes. As a result, you grow up with your self-worth being very much tied to external validation. Like I didn't have any self-worth. The man made sure of that, you know? My role in life was to perform the role of the good daughter for my father. He doesn't talk to me, but he talks about me, and his wife certainly talks about me. They call me Natasha, and they use she, her pronouns. I don't know if that's because they are transphobic in general, probably, or whether they just want to hurt me. But I often wonder, like, how would my mum have handled me transitioning? I'm sure she would have had something to say about it. I don't think she would have been 100% supportive. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to no rose-tinted glasses here. She'd have something to say about it. She'd tell me I was being ridiculous. Stop rocking the boat. Stop making drama. There are many ways to be female, she'll tell me, to be a woman. That's just because you don't identify with doesn't mean you can have short hair and still be a woman. She'd say all of that shit. And then eventually I'd be like, yeah, no, I am transitioning, so you're just gonna have to get used to it. And she would. She would. And she'd get my pronouns wrong. And every time she'd get them wrong, she'd be like, that's what she'd do. She'd be like, but she'd try every time. She'd fuck up and she'd do it again. She wouldn't apologize, but she'd be like, I mean they, I mean he. Like she would try. And there would have come a point in time where she would have just got used to it. She would have moaned, like, I gave you the name Natasha. Why are you changing it? But eventually she would have come around. And I think most importantly, that if anyone else had dared to dead name me in front of my mother, she'd probably have something to say about it. Because at the end of the day, she was one of my biggest protectors growing up. And my father doesn't care about me or love me. And so using my dead name and the wrong pronouns is just part of that, you know? I I have become a bit of an expert over the years at dealing with narcissists. I'm probably the first one that sounded the alarm about my father because, as I said, everyone loved him. They thought he was charming. My mum went to her grave telling me that I was so lucky to have such a wonderful father. He was the best father a person could ask for. Look at him. He takes care of us. He meets all of our needs. He pays for everything. I don't think she had any idea. But anyway, I had to learn how to to like figure out what's true, what's not true, like who's what's gaslighting and how do you know you're being gaslit and how do you deal with being gaslit. I had to learn to spot a flying monkey. Don't know if you've ever heard of those, but yeah, I'm really good at spotting the flying monkey now. I've learned how to deal with people who take up all the air in the room and who need you to perform in a certain way. And I'm good at it, and I'm also good at telling other people how to deal with it. Like if you're struggling with a narcissist in your life, feel free to reach out. Be like, hey, what would you do in this situation? I'm happy to help. Happy to help. Please don't all inundate me because I'm not a relationship expert. But I can tell you what's worked for me. But I want to go back through this list now, and I want you to like listen to the list now that and I've basically done the whole revenge episode. Really hope it makes it back to him. I really do. Of course, like he'll have so much to say and he'll be so outraged, but that's the whole point. I'm never giving him the fight that he wants, and he will never have a response to the itemized bill. But this is my, everybody deserves that moment, like in the movie or in the book, where the hero of the story gets their kind of like, moment of like, yeah, this is what that is for me. But I also appreciate that you didn't tune into this podcast episode just to hear me get revenge. So I wanted to sort of offer up some helpful advice because a lot of doctors, as I said, are narcissists or have narcissistic traits or certainly behave the same way as my father did in the doctor's office. First of all, there's the power thing, like because growing up, your parents have incredible amount of power over you, and when you're in a doctor's office, the doctor has a similar amount of power over you, right? Like actual power over like basic things like your health and your ability to live, literally. So similarities. Father, doctor, similarities. And so the doctors tend to have quite a sense of self-importance, right? Heightened sense of self-importance. They tend to have this kind of fantasy that they are right at all times and everyone else is wrong. And they know shit. They look at a test result and they're like, well, I know what this means. And yeah, I mean, they are able to interpret test results, I agree, like, because, they went to medical school and stuff, but they don't actually know. We don't, I should say. Doctors don't know that much. There's way more stuff we don't know than we do know. And even if we know how to interpret a test result, that doesn't mean we know what's happening with you. And we're not psychic and we can't like, oh, that happened because of this. Like, how do you know that? That's ridiculous. A lot of the time, sometimes it's obvious, you got pneumonia because of an infection, but sometimes it's not obvious. And certainly whenever we're blaming your weight, that's just bullshit. So there's a sense of self-importance, right? A need for admiration. I think they go hand in hand. Doctors like to be admired and they don't like it when you question them, do they? They don't like that. No. They expect you to agree. Why wouldn't you? And they expect you to perform in a certain way, perform the role of the good patient and the good fat, please, at all times. And if you don't, you will be punished. They are able to shirk their responsibilities towards you as a doctor by shifting the blame and making it about you and your failings. Like it is gaslighting. I hate using that term because it gets used way too much nowadays, but that's actually what it is. Like instead of telling you, I don't know, I'm confused, I don't know what to make of this, I don't know how to help you. These are very hard things for doctors to admit because of, points 1 to 3 that I just listed. So instead of saying that, they're like, well, it's your fault. Oh, well, if you weren't fat, if you did this, if you weren't that, if you ate less pork pies or whatever it is that they say to you, they get to abdicate all responsibility, shift it over onto you, reverse order and all that shit. That's what they do. Doctors really struggle with empathy. And again, not in a, they're not expressing an empathy in a way that I want them to express it. That's one thing. In a, they don't feel empathy kind of way. And actually, as someone who's worked in medicine for a long time, part of it is that if you allow yourself to feel all the things after a while, like you feel a lot of things, you see a lot of death, you see a lot of pain, you see a lot of hurt. And if you take all of that on and you sort of soak it all up like a sponge, then it ends up costing you personally. So there is to a degree a sort of, I don't know, like a boundary. There has to be some kind of like buffer between the patient and the doctor so that they don't get too close and they don't feel too much. But they kind of like, I feel like a lot of doctors have gone the other way. And like, there's, again, it's not binary, empathy or no empathy. I feel like there's something in between that, a balance perhaps that they need to achieve. A lot of doctors are deeply insecure and petty. I know because I've worked with them. I went to medical school with them. And actually, a lot of these people are like, really? This jackass? He's now the head of that department? Seriously? That guy? I have pictures of him vomiting into a washing machine. Like, I don't think that he should be in the position of power that he's in. But this is the reality that we have. Like, medicine doesn't exactly attract decent people, the profession itself, because of its status, because of its because of the beliefs that society holds about medicine. It's kind of like politics doesn't tend to attract decent sorts, or decent, but I don't want to say it in terms of bad and good, but you know what I'm saying. Like politics, police force, armed forces. There's certain people who are attracted to power, right? And those people sometimes can be a bit problematic. So you expect them to care, and more often than not, they don't. Um, so like, look, I'm not. This is not. I don't have time to tell you like all the ways to deal with narcissistic doctors or parents. Um, I just I just need you to sort of start to see them that way. Like when you're in a room with a doctor and the doctor is at being a jerk, and you're conditioned to believe it's your fault. Like you did that, you did something wrong, you're the problem. It's the same as the child of a narcissist. Like every time they misbehave, every time they behave in a way that is really quite abominable sometimes, you'll always go back to saying, "That's my fault. I did something wrong. I deserve this. I brought this on myself." So, really, the purpose of this episode, apart from revenge, is for me to remind you that more often than not, if you feel like this doctor is, you know, thinks they're all that, is expecting you to behave a certain way, has an excessive desire for admiration, is entitled, is being rude and disrespectful, is being exploitative, is refusing to be held accountable, has no empathy, is insecure, is petty, is all of those things. You're not wrong. I don't want you to think that like there is that feeling like, oh, it must be me, not them. No, no, there's a really good chance that you're absolutely right, and the person sitting in front of you is the one with the problem. And narcissists want you to believe always that they're right and you're wrong, and they're not. And the best thing that you can do, as I wrote it down, he has zero power over me. I have no use for him. He is a reform voting, wealth hoarding bigot who hates immigrants, even though he is an immigrant himself. He is a hypocrite. He is unimaginative. He's not creative. He can't create, only manipulate and destroy. He's not funny or kind or talented or particularly competent. He has no sense of style because beneath his arrogance and smug superiority, he is an empty, vacuous hole. I am better than he is in every way that matters. He may have more money than me and be more quote unquote successful than me, but I have more imagination and resilience in the tip of my pinky finger than he has managed to accumulate in his 70 plus years of life. And with that, I bid you adieu. Come back for the next episode. The ruling class wrote the rules and I'm done following them. Sounds exciting. Can't wait to see you then.